Erik Darling here, President and CEO of Darling Data Enterprises. And in today's video, we're going to talk about Optimize for. Why? Well, because I have kind of a funny angle on it. And it's not that Optimize for Unknown is good. Optimize for Unknown is dumb and it stinks, and everyone who I see use it because, parameter sniffing. I just wish that I wish that there were like a Zoom feature for me to send a boxing glove on a spring out of their computer somewhere and just whap them. It is internally deflating to hear these words. But we're going to talk about how sometimes optimizing for a specific value can be a better course of action than optimizing for unknown. You do have to kind of know and care and love your data and all that stuff in order to figure out what values you should be optimizing for, because that can be a tricky enterprise. But once you have found that enlightenment, once you have found that Zen moment, once you have experienced that spiritual release, nothing will ever top it. Promise. Anyway, before we talk about that, let's talk about $4. If you got $4 a month and you want to be a member of my channel, you can click the become a member link in the video description and do just that. You can cancel any time, as they say. If $4 a month is more than you can stand to part with, if you care very deeply about every George Washington that comes into your bank account, liking, commenting, and subscribing are just wonderful ways of becoming part of the Darling Data community of Data Darlings. You can join over 5,000 other people who have joined the ranks of the Darling Data Darling Army, the Dadas. If you need SQL Server consulting, I am world class at all of these things. We don't even need Beer Gut Magazine to tell us that anymore. We just know from experience. And as always, my rates are reasonable. If you would like some very high quality, very low cost training, and if you've looked around at the Black Friday offers that other people have out there, and you're like, wow, that's still hundreds or thousands of dollars, and that's only good for a year, you can get all mine for $150 for the rest of your life, or just about $150 USD, of course. I don't accept other currencies. Someone else has to do that conversion and translation for me. You can either click on the link up there and use the discount code SPRINGCLEANING, or click the link in the video description and you can get both. You can get all of that. Upcoming events, I got none. Oh no, I don't have to go anywhere. Shame, I'll just stay in my underwear at home. But of course, if you would like me to show up to your event, either in my underwear or maybe in some sort of, vaguely business casual wardrobe, it might look a lot like this, at least from the top up. Then let me know what your event is, and maybe we can figure something out. And with all that out of the way, let's get into this fun thing that we have to talk about. Now, I'm going to start this store procedure off written in a way that I personally don't like, right? Because this will lead to all sorts of problems. This is one of those things. When I say the words, anything that makes your job easier makes the optimizer's job harder, this is probably like at the top of the list of those things, because this is a pattern that I see in almost every single consulting engagement, somewhere in a query that someone is having performance problems with. This is never a good sign. And it's not good for a number of reasons. I'm going to say parameter sniffing is one of them, but it just ends up with some really ugly consequences. Now, I've already run all the queries for this, and if you're able to look under my armpit there, you might see the number 8 minutes and 31 seconds. Right? 8 minutes, 31 seconds, and the general gist of this is that as long as you are searching for an owner user ID, as long as this is not null, and you might have a store procedure with a pattern somewhat like this, where you are just guaranteed to always get an owner, like the equivalent of that ID passed in. you might do okay. Right? You might just not ever have like a terribly big problem with this pattern. But as soon as people start doing searches for other stuff that maybe don't focus on a specific owner user ID, that's when you run into issues. So the first three executions of this are all looking for an owner user ID. This is all populated in here, right? This one, this one, this one. Where we do, oh, that was bad zoom in etiquette on my part there. That did not go well. But for these bottom two, you'll see that we do not have owner user ID populated in there, and that's where this query starts to run into trouble. Like this one does okay, right? Up at the top where we search for 22656. And I want to point out something out here that is kind of fun, is that these queries actually do all get the parameter sensitive plan optimization stuff. That's why the ones that you see are slightly different in the first few queries, right? So like this plan, because parallel has some estimates associated with it. This plan is not parallel. It gets an estimate of 117. This plan is not parallel. It gets an estimate of 95. And like the serial plans are slower, right? That's 1.7 seconds to scan that. That's 1.7 seconds to scan that. The parallel plan is the fastest of the bunch. But even if you look at the parallel plan, like we have an index up here that leads on owner user ID, right? That one, this fantastic index right here, this single key column index that I would probably also make fun of if I saw in real life. But we have an index scan here. We should be able to do an index seek, but we can't because we're doing the column equals parameter or parameter is null. You can replace this with any variation on the thing where it's just like column equals is null, parameter, column, whatever. You're still going to see this same sort of thing here where you can't seek into the index well. Then like these two both have the same thing, but there's an additional thing in all of these in the key lookup where we're evaluating additional predicates. This is part of what makes this demo sort of sparkle, but this is also not a good sign to see in your query plans, right? You don't want to see this stuff over and over again. Now down here, this is where these queries really start to have problems. Because even with the parameter sensitive plan optimization kicking in, right? If you look down here, these are the last two things that executed. We're getting like weird, like whatever query variant we're getting for this is not so hot, right? This is kind of bad in there. So we get the query variant plan for 95 rows, which is this one, and then we get that same one again down here. But these execution plans just don't work well at all for the queries that we get. That's 7 minutes and 44 seconds. All that time, like aside from the 51 seconds that you see up to the nested loops join, that all that time is in that sort spilling. And down here, we don't exactly have the sort spill, but we do have about the 40 seconds of time spent just like between the lookup and this and everything else. So this pattern obviously doesn't work terribly well. Okay, so avoid this one as much as you can. What I see a lot of people do is when they do this, or when they have other store procedures where things sometimes act up, is stick this optimize for unknown hint in there. Now, this does turn out better than the query pattern I just showed you. I admit that. It does turn out better, but it's still not great. Still don't love it. And the plans change for these, right? Where now, rather than do any sort of non-clustered index thing, we just scan the clustered index every time. Granted, we don't have anything that spills for 7 minutes, but this is not exactly the plan shape that you would want to see, right? This is not exactly fun, and this whole predicate in here is still a problem, right? So that query problem is still an issue with the optimize for unknown. We just take away the cardinality estimates that might have happened, and we replace them with the optimize for unknown sort of thing, and then we just get these sort of crappy plans. The two down here still have problems, right? This one takes 1 minute and 11 seconds with a lot of that time spent still in the sort, right? That's not a fun time to spend, not a fun amount of time to spend spilling. And this one takes 1.2 seconds, again, just scanning the clustered index. So the optimize for unknown hint gears all these queries towards a clustered index scan, away from a lookup plan, which helps a little bit sometimes, but is just sort of not what we want to see overall. Over here, I've got this store procedure set up to optimize for a specific set of parameters that work out pretty well across the board, right? So this is like, rather than say optimize for unknown or let SQL Server do a thing every single time, we're gonna, or even cache and reuse a plan or use parameter sensitive plan optimization stuff. We're gonna tell SQL Server, every time this runs, I want a plan for when these parameters being these values. And this works out a bit better. Not perfectly. We still have a scan up. We still have the same problem with the query pattern itself, right? So like ideally fix the query pattern. But if you're kind of hamstrung and that's too hard for you or whatever, you might be better off just saying, hey, these values work really well to get me the plan that I want. So we still have the problems in here. We still have the predicate stuff in here that we don't want, but we get like at least a sort of stable plan across. And even for the the two final queries in this, these end up better than the first time around. The last one down here is a bit slower than the optimized for unknown version, but when you take into account that this one no longer takes like, 8 minutes or like almost 2 minutes or whatever that was, like the time you save on most of the executions for this is a lot more helpful. Granted, this one, if we're going to be ivory tower about stuff, we should really fix that query pattern instead. But if you're going to do something like this, like the time that you lose on this one is made up for by the time that you gain on this one. So still not great down here and still not great here, but a lot better than we saw with the original query pattern and with the exception of this one with the optimized for unknown pattern. So whenever you're sort of digging through store procedures that have this problem, and if you're using optimized for unknown in places, then you should probably consider figuring out a good set of sort of, let's just call them store procedure defaults, and optimizing for those instead, because you can generally find a really good execution plan for a set of values that'll work pretty well across a lot of other sets of values. Might not be perfect, there might be regressions in some places, but it's better than like almost the full thing being a regression like I often see with optimized for unknown. So anyway, hope you enjoyed yourselves. I hope you learned something. I hope you will, I don't know, maybe optimize for specific values rather than optimize for unknown. And I will see you in another video shortly, maybe. We'll see. It depends on how cute I'm feeling. Anyway, goodbye.